The human man stood among the tall alien guards, trying not to draw attention to himself. He had never been inside a hall like this before. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and the floor looked like glass filled with slow-moving stars beneath it. The guards were silent, their faces hidden behind smooth helmets that reflected his own nervous face back at him. Each of them stood at attention, unmoving like living statues, holding long silver spears that hummed faintly. He had come here only to fix a damaged control relay. That was his job. He was a technician from one of the human colonies, used to repairing ship engines and power cores, not walking into the throne hall of the most powerful alien ruler in the sector. He hadn't even meant to enter this room. A guard had misunderstood his request for access, and before he knew it, he had been pushed through the great silver doors into the heart of the alien palace. Now, as he stood still, he felt the weight of 100 eyes on him. The guards were taller than any human, each easily 8 feet high. Their armor made them look like something carved from metal and night. He tried not to move, afraid that any sudden gesture might be seen as disrespect. At the far end of the hall stood the throne, if it could even be called that. It was made of some living material that shifted gently as though it breathed. Around it floated transparent rings of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. And sitting there, surrounded by that strange glow, was the alien queen. The first thing he noticed about her was her presence. She didn't need to move to command attention. Her skin shimmered softly like liquid pearl, and her long hair fell in waves that seemed to catch light from nowhere. Her eyes were deep, almost endless, and carried a calm that made the guards around her seem small. He didn't mean to look at her directly, but something about her made him forget the rules. He had heard the warnings. Humans should never meet the eyes of the alien queen. It was considered dangerous, a crime even, but when he glanced up, her gaze met his, and he couldn't look away. For a moment, the air itself seemed to stop moving. The guards straightened sharply, some shifting their grips on their weapons. A few looked ready to act. The human swallowed hard, realizing what he had just done. His heart pounded. He expected a shout, an order for his arrest, maybe worse. Instead, the queen smiled. It was a small smile, almost hidden, but it was there. And when she did, something inside the vast hall seemed to change. The guards hesitated, uncertain, and lowered their weapons slightly. The silence grew heavier, but it was no longer threatening. Her voice came next, soft but powerful enough to fill the entire chamber. "You," she said. "Step forward." He froze, unsure he had heard correctly. A guard turned toward him and gestured sharply for him to obey. His legs moved before his mind could argue. His steps echoed across the floor, each one louder than the last. The closer he got to her, the more unreal everything felt. When he reached the foot of the throne, he bowed awkwardly. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice rough from fear. "I didn't mean to intrude." "I was only—" The queen raised a hand, stopping him. "Do not fear," she said quietly. "You are far from home, yet you stand without trembling. That is rare among your kind." He wasn't sure what to say. His mind told him to stay silent, but curiosity pushed words out anyway. You know about humans?" Her eyes softened and something unreadable flickered across her face. "I have known your kind for a long time," she said. "Longer than you might believe." She tilted her head slightly. "What is your name?" "Eli," he said. "Eli Ward." She repeated it, letting the sound roll slowly from her tongue. Eli. The way she said it made his own name sound unfamiliar. Strange. That name feels old to me. He frowned, unsure what she meant. "Old?" Her smile deepened, though her gaze turned thoughtful. "Long ago, when the stars were still young, there was another with that name. A man who stood beside me when I needed help most." "He was human too," Eli blinked. "That can't be possible. Humans only made contact with your people 30 years ago." She walked down the steps toward him, her movement smooth and graceful. As she drew closer, the light around her seemed to follow. "Time is not the same for us," she said. "And not everything written in your history books is true." He wanted to step back, but he didn't. Something about her presence held him still. She stopped just in front of him, close enough for him to see faint lines of light beneath her skin, moving like rivers. She studied his face for a long moment. "The eyes," she whispered. "The same eyes. You are his echo." Eli didn't know what to say. The guard shifted behind him, uneasy, as if unsure whether to intervene. The queen straightened again. "Tell me," she said. "Why are you here?" He hesitated. I was sent to fix a power relay near the palace wall. One of your officers said the device was malfunctioning. I came to repair it, but the door opened. She finished for him, her smile faint again. And fate decided you should walk through. Eli gave a nervous laugh. If that's fate, it has a strange sense of humor. That made her smile a little wider. Perhaps, she said softly. Then her expression turned serious again. You should not remain here. The council will not approve. They still see your people as invaders even after the peace. He nodded quickly. Then I'll leave right away. But she lifted a hand to stop him. No, she said. Not yet. Her gaze drifted toward the high windows where faint light from 2 suns spilled across the floor. There is war moving again. Your fleets approach the outer rim. If battle returns, many will die on both sides. I do not wish that. I'm just a technician, Eli said quietly. I don't make those decisions. I know, she replied. But sometimes the smallest person changes the course of great things. A voice echoed from behind the throne, sharp and commanding. Your Majesty, forgive me. An alien general stepped forward, his armor crimson and silver. The council requests your presence. The human envoys have sent another message. The queen didn't turn. I will come soon, she said. The general bowed but hesitated when he saw Eli. His eyes narrowed beneath his visor. A human? He said sharply. How did he? The queen's tone turned cold. He is my guest. You will not question me. The general lowered his head immediately. As you command. He left in silence, his footsteps quick. When he was gone, the queen looked back at Eli. You must go now, she said softly. They will not understand. Not yet. He wanted to ask what she meant, but the doors behind him opened again and 2 guards appeared, waiting. He took a slow breath. Will I see you again? For a moment, the queen said nothing. Then she smiled once more. The same quiet, mysterious smile that had frozen the hall earlier. When the stars align, she said, you will return. And I will remember. He bowed his head slightly. Yes, Your Majesty. As he walked away, the great doors closed behind him with a deep echo. The corridor outside felt colder, emptier. He leaned against the wall, trying to steady his breathing. None of it made sense, her words, her recognition, the strange warmth in her eyes. But one thing he knew for certain, he would never forget that smile. Inside the throne room, the queen stood alone again. She raised one hand and looked at the faint light still lingering on her skin, where he had stood moments before. For a long time, she didn't move. Finally, she whispered something in her own language, a name lost to time, and the air around her shimmered faintly. Outside, far above the palace, ships moved through orbit like silver shadows. The sky itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting. And on the edge of all that silence, one human man walked away, unaware that the queen of an empire had just spoken his fate into motion. Eli could not stop thinking about the queen. Even after he left the grand hall, her image stayed in his mind. He tried to forget it and return to his work, but every time he blinked, he saw her eyes again. Calm, ancient, and filled with something he couldn't explain. He had only met her for a few minutes, but that moment had changed everything inside him. He returned to the palace repair sector where his tools were kept. The other human engineers were busy fixing damaged power conduits and communication panels. None of them had any idea that Eli had just stood before the alien queen herself. He didn't tell them either. It was safer that way. No one would believe him, and if the alien council found out, they might decide to make him disappear quietly. For the next few days, Eli worked as if nothing had happened. He kept his head down, spoke only when necessary, and stayed away from the higher levels of the palace. But sometimes he noticed things, small, strange things. Guards would watch him a little longer than before. Some whispered when he passed. One night, when he returned to his small quarters, he found the door slightly open, even though he was sure he had locked it. Nothing was missing, but his personal terminal had been moved. Someone had been searching through his things. He knew then that his meeting with the queen hadn't gone unnoticed. Still, he couldn't help wondering why she had smiled at him. Why had she said she knew him? Why did her voice sound like she had been waiting for him? Those questions haunted him more than the fear of being watched. On the 4th night, as he lay awake staring at the ceiling, the door to his room slid open quietly. He jumped up, ready to defend himself, but it wasn't a guard. It was her. The queen stood in the doorway, wearing a long, dark robe that shimmered like water under moonlight. Her crown was gone and her hair fell loose around her shoulders. Without the royal glow and armor of command, she looked softer, almost fragile, yet still radiating the same strange power. Eli froze. "Your Majesty." She raised a finger to her lips. "Quiet," she whispered. "No one must know I'm here." He nodded slowly, stepping aside as she entered. The door closed behind her with a soft sound. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air felt heavy with tension. Finally, Eli managed to find his voice. "Why are you here?" "If someone sees you, they won't," she said. "I came through the hidden paths." The palace was built with many secrets. She looked around the small, simple room, the bed, the tools, the dim lights. Her gaze lingered on the broken panel he had been repairing earlier. "So this is where you live." "It's not much," he admitted. "But it works." She turned back to him, and for a brief moment she smiled again, the same way she had in the throne hall. "You remind me of him," she said quietly. Eli frowned. "The human you spoke about before?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, the one who saved me long ago." Her eyes softened as she spoke. He was brave, kind, and willing to stand against things much greater than himself. "When I look at you, I see his spirit." He rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "I'm no hero, Your Majesty. I fix machines. I don't even know how to fight." "Sometimes courage has nothing to do with fighting," she said. "Sometimes it is in standing where others would flee." He didn't know how to answer that, so he stayed quiet. The Queen moved closer to the window and looked out over the city. From here, the alien capital spread endlessly, thousands of glowing towers rising into a dark sky filled with stars. Far above, enormous ships drifted like silent giants. "War is coming," she said softly. "I can feel it in the stars." Eli joined her by the window. "Is it the human fleets?" "Yes," she said. "Your commanders believe we are preparing new weapons. They fear us. And my council fears your people just as much. Fear feeds itself until it becomes fire," he sighed. "It doesn't have to be that way." She turned her head toward him. "And what would you do, human engineer, to stop two great empires from destroying each other?" Her tone wasn't mocking. It was curious, almost hopeful. Eli looked out at the sky again. "I'd start by reminding both sides that not all of us want war. Some of us just want to live, to build things instead of breaking them." For a long time, the Queen didn't reply. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer. "That is exactly what he said to me all those centuries ago." He looked at her confused again. "But how could that be? Humans didn't exist here back then. Our ships only reached this system recently." She smiled faintly, her eyes distant. "There are many things your people have forgotten. The first humans who touched the stars did not come as conquerors. They came as wanderers, dreamers. One of them saved my life. He died before he could return to his world. Perhaps the universe is kind enough to give souls another chance." Eli felt a strange chill. "You think I'm him?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached out and gently placed her hand on his chest just above his heart. Her touch was warm, filled with faint energy that made his skin tingle. "I don't know what you are," she said. "But when I look at you, I feel the same peace I felt beside him." He didn't move. He didn't even breathe for a moment. Her touch lingered there for only a second before she stepped back. Then, suddenly, a distant alarm echoed through the palace. The Queen turned sharply toward the sound, her calm expression hardening. "They've come sooner than expected," she said. Eli grabbed his jacket. "What's happening?" "The Outer Fleet," she said. "The humans have crossed into the Forbidden Zone. My generals will call for retaliation. There will be no more talking." He followed her into the corridor where the lights were flashing red. Guards were already running past, shouting orders in their native language. When they saw her, they dropped to one knee immediately. "Majesty," one called. "The Terran fleet has deployed fighters in orbit. Our defense towers are charging weapons." "Hold fire," she commanded. "Do not engage until I say." The guard hesitated but obeyed. She turned to Eli. "You must come with me. You know their technology better than anyone here. If we are to avoid bloodshed, I need your help." He hesitated. "You trust me?" She met his gaze steadily. "I did once before." Together they hurried through a maze of glowing halls and metal bridges that led to the command chamber. From there, enormous windows revealed the battle forming above the planet. Dark shapes moving against the stars. Streaks of light from engines, distant flashes where shields met warning shots. Eli felt sick. If this turns into a full fight, thousands will die. The Queen placed her hand on the control sphere in the center of the room, and the image of the human fleet expanded in front of them. Then we will make sure it doesn't. She looked at him. Can you open a channel to your people? The Council will not allow it, but I will. I can try, he said, sitting quickly at one of the consoles. His fingers moved fast across the glowing symbols. Their frequency might still be the same as last trade cycle. After a few tense moments, static filled the air. Then a human voice came through, calm, but wary. This is Admiral Henson of the Terran Fleet. Identify yourself. This is Eli Ward, he said. Engineering Division, currently inside the Ardent Palace. A pause followed. Eli, how the hell did you— There's no time, he cut in. Admiral, you need to stop. The Queen doesn't want war. If you fire, they'll answer and it'll never stop. The Admiral's tone hardened. We can't take that risk. Our scouts saw their defense grids powering up. Eli looked at the Queen. She spoke calmly, her voice carrying through the open channel. Because you entered our skies with weapons armed, we only protect what is ours. The Admiral went silent for a long time. Then slowly he said, You speak our language. I have studied it, she replied. I wish for peace, Admiral Henson, but my council grows restless. Do not make me choose between reason and duty. Eli's heart pounded as he watched the radar display. Both fleets hovered on the edge of disaster. Finally, the Admiral spoke again. We'll hold position, but this is temporary. The signal cut off. Eli exhaled slowly, slumping back. That was too close. The Queen looked at him with quiet gratitude. You just stopped a war, Eli Ward. He shook his head. Only for now. They'll come again, she smiled faintly. Then we will face them again. Together. Outside the palace, the red alarms faded. The sky above the capital returned to its quiet glow, but the unease remained. The Queen looked out through the great window, her reflection beside his. You are not just a man from another world, she said softly. You are a reminder. A reminder of what? He asked. That peace is still possible, she answered. He didn't reply, but as the twin suns began to rise over the horizon, casting gold light across the alien city, he felt something shift inside him. Maybe she was right. Maybe fate really did bring him here for a reason. And deep within the halls of the palace, the guards whispered of the human who had stood beside their queen in the hour before war, and how she had smiled at him again. The next morning, Eli awoke with a strange mix of exhaustion and anticipation. His mind raced as he remembered the night before, the Queen's words, her smile, the weight of the responsibility he now carried. Outside his small quarters, the palace hummed with activity. Guards moved silently through the corridors. Engineers tended to damaged systems, and messengers hurried past with sealed orders. The city above was alive, but beneath the surface, tension simmered like a storm waiting to break. Eli dressed quickly and made his way to the command chamber. The Queen was already there, standing before a large map of the sector. She traced her fingers along the holographic lines, marking fleets, patrols, and zones of influence. Her movements were calm, precise, deliberate, yet there was a certain urgency in the way her eyes scanned the details. Eli, she said without turning, I need you to help me understand the human technology. The ships approaching our borders are not simple. They move faster than any fleet I have encountered, and their weapons are designed to adapt. We cannot afford mistakes. He stepped closer, his fingers brushing over the console. I'll do what I can. I know their systems, how they communicate, their power grids, their shields. But I need time. She finally looked at him, her eyes steady and sharp. Time is a luxury we do not have. They will reach the outer rim within the hour. Your understanding could prevent thousands of lives being lost on both sides. Eli swallowed hard. Then we start now. For the next few hours, they worked together in silence, interrupted only by the soft hum of the palace systems and the occasional alert from the sensors. Eli guided her through human protocols, explaining how fleets were structured, how weapons were deployed, and how communication lines could be intercepted or rerouted. The Queen listened intently, her mind absorbing every detail. She asked questions that Eli had never considered before, ones that revealed not just strategy, but a deep understanding of diplomacy and human nature. By midday, a plan had begun to take shape. Instead of confrontation, they would use coordination and communication to prevent a clash. The Queen would signal her fleets to remain defensive, while Eli would contact the human admiral, guiding him to hold position and avoid provocation. As they worked, Eli began to notice subtle changes in the Queen. She was patient, but there were flashes of emotion that crossed her face: concern, anticipation, even relief when an idea worked. For all her centuries of rule and power, she moved with a grace that reminded him of someone who bore great responsibility, yet still cared deeply for those under her protection. "You are different from what I expected," Eli said quietly as they reviewed the final step of their plan. She glanced at him. "Different? Yes, I thought you would be cold, distant, perhaps even unapproachable. But you are neither. You care." Her expression softened. "One cannot rule an empire without care, Eli. Care is what guides decisions, keeps the empire alive, prevents needless suffering. Without it, power is only destruction." Eli nodded, understanding for the first time the weight of her position. "I just hope it's enough. The humans are proud, and their fear can turn to aggression quickly. Then we will guide them," she said, "with precision, patience, and reason. That is all we can do." The alarm sounded again, sharper this time. The palace sensors detected movement in the outer space above their territory. Eli's heart raced as he moved to the console, following the paths of the incoming human ships. They were moving faster than anticipated, their formations tight, their weapons armed. "Stay calm," the Queen said, placing her hand lightly on his shoulder. The touch was brief, yet it steadied him. "We are prepared." He nodded and opened a secure channel to Admiral Henson. "Admiral, this is Eli Ward. Listen carefully. Do not engage. Your ships are entering a zone that is heavily defended. Any sudden movement will trigger a response. Hold your positions." There was a pause, filled only by static. Then the Admiral's voice came, tense but cautious. "I hear you, Eli, but if we hold, they might see it as weakness. Are you certain we are safe?" "I am certain," Eli replied. "The Queen wants peace and she will ensure it. Trust her." On the other side, a voice muttered something under its breath, then a final acknowledgement. "Holding position. Do not engage." Eli exhaled, relief washing over him, but it was tempered by the understanding that this calm was temporary. The skies above would remain tense for only so long. The Queen stepped closer, her eyes on the holographic map. "Now we must think of the next move. If they see our restraint, some will respect it, but others will test it. We cannot allow provocation to escalate," he nodded. "I can analyze their likely strategies, predict where they might strike first, and prepare contingencies. But it will take time. Then we use it wisely," she said. "We are still learning from each other, Eli. Your knowledge is human, mine is, well, everything else. Together, we may guide them to avoid disaster." The day passed in a blur of calculations, simulations, and communication checks. Eli worked tirelessly, translating human tactics into actionable plans for the Queen and her council. They moved in harmony, two minds from different worlds combining insight and experience. Each time he explained a strategy, she listened, questioned, and refined it, her understanding growing deeper with every exchange. As night fell, the city below the palace glimmered like a sea of stars. Eli leaned against a railing on one of the observation decks, his gaze drawn upward to the dark sky where distant fleets hovered. The Queen appeared beside him, silent, watching the same horizon. "You are learning quickly," she said softly, "and you are calm in the face of danger. That is unusual for humans," he chuckled quietly. "Maybe I learned from necessity, or maybe I'm just lucky." Her gaze met his, steady and unwavering. "Luck is part of it. Courage is another. But there is also something else in you. Something familiar. I do not understand it fully, yet I feel it. It is as though we have met before in another life, another time." Eli's breath caught. "You mean the man you spoke of?" She nodded. "Yes, I see his reflection in you. And in some ways that reflection guides you now." He wanted to ask more, to understand what she meant, but he felt the weight of her words and the unspoken history behind them. Some things, he realized, could not be explained easily. Some connections existed beyond logic, beyond time itself. Suddenly alarms echoed again, this time more urgent. The human fleet had shifted slightly, a small group of ships breaking formation. Eli jumped to the console, checking sensors and paths. "They're moving," he said urgently. They could trigger a response from the outer defense towers. The Queen placed a hand on the console, her fingers tracing faint patterns in the air. Energy flowed from her touch, interfacing with the system in ways Eli could barely comprehend. The display adjusted instantly, rerouting power, signaling warning messages, and creating virtual safe corridors. They trust us, she said quietly. Now we guide them safely. For the next hour, they worked together with unmatched focus, guiding ships, sending warnings, and adjusting defenses. The tension was unbearable, yet every move was precise, deliberate. Each time Eli thought a mistake might happen, the Queen's calm presence steadied him. Each time the human fleet responded correctly, he felt a surge of relief. When the final wave of ships passed safely through the outer rim, Eli slumped back in his chair, exhausted. The Queen looked at him with a rare softness. "You have done well," she said. "Not just in knowledge, but in heart. You cared, and that made the difference." He shook his head. "I didn't do it alone. You guided me every step of the way." She smiled faintly, that same enigmatic smile that had captured him before. Perhaps you guided yourself as he once did long ago." Eli looked at her, seeing a mix of strength, wisdom, and something more fragile beneath it all. He realized then that this Queen was not just a ruler. She was a force of balance, a guardian of life and peace in a galaxy that so often forgot the value of either. As the city lights twinkled below and the fleets moved safely in the sky above, Eli understood that his life had changed forever. The Queen had smiled at him once more, a simple gesture that carried centuries of history, and he felt the beginning of a bond that neither time nor distance could sever. The palace was quiet now. The alarms gone, but the sense of anticipation remained. Eli knew the human fleets would return. The Council would challenge the Queen, and the galaxy would continue to test their limits. Yet for the first time he felt ready. He had faced fear, guided decisions, and stood beside a Queen who had chosen to see him not just as a human, but as someone capable of changing the fate of worlds. And somewhere deep inside he knew this was only the beginning. The days that followed were tense, but not as dire as the night of the near conflict. Eli remained in the palace, working closely with the Queen, studying her strategies, learning her way of thinking. Each day he felt the connection between them grow stronger, subtle but undeniable. He had never imagined that he would be part of such a story, standing beside a Queen, helping to guide the actions of entire fleets, shaping the outcome of potential war. Yet he was here, and every moment mattered. The Queen had begun to trust him completely. She allowed him into places no human had ever been before. The war rooms, the secret archives, even private chambers where the Council debated and schemed. She valued his opinion, listened to his advice, and sometimes even laughed softly at his small, nervous observations. It was a kindness Eli had not expected, and one that made his heart race each time he was near her. One evening, as the twin suns began to set, casting long shadows across the palace towers, the Queen called him to the observation deck. From there, the city and sky stretched endlessly, a mosaic of glowing lights and quiet hums of energy. "Eli," she said, her voice softer than usual, "you have done more than prevent conflict. You have reminded us all that the heart matters as much as strategy. That is something many forget in these times." He looked at her, uncertain how to respond. "I just did what I could," he said. "I didn't know how much difference I was making." She turned to face him fully, the light from the setting suns reflecting off her skin. "You underestimate yourself. Courage, intelligence, compassion, these are rare, Eli, and you possess all three. That is why I smiled at you in the hall the first time. I knew then that you were someone special." Eli felt warmth spread through his chest. He did not understand everything about her words, but he understood the meaning. She saw him, truly saw him, in a way no one else had ever done. Before he could reply, an alarm sounded again, cutting through the quiet. Sensors detected unusual activity near the planetary borders, a series of rogue ships approaching at high speed. The Queen moved swiftly to the command console, her fingers tracing patterns in the air. The display lit up with red markers, showing multiple paths converging on the capital. "They are testing us," she said calmly, "trying to gauge our defenses." Eli worked beside her, guiding him as she interfaced with the alien systems. "We can reroute energy from the outer shields to create safe corridors for them," he suggested. "If we give them the illusion of vulnerability, they may hesitate." The Queen's eyes glimmered with approval. "Yes, that is clever, Eli. Prepare it immediately." They moved quickly, coordinating defenses and rerouting power. The rogue ship slowed as they entered the zone, scanning. Cautious, Eli felt a surge of relief as the Queen's measures worked. The fleet shifted formation, avoiding the traps they had set. Bloodshed was avoided once more. When the last of the rogue ships passed safely through the border, The Queen stepped back from the console and exhaled softly. "Well done, Eli. Once again, your guidance has preserved life." He shook his head, exhausted but relieved. "It's not just me. You're the one making the final decisions. I only help interpret what I know." Her gaze softened. "Even so, it is rare that someone can understand both sides so clearly. You have a gift." For a moment they stood in silence, watching the sky darken as the stars emerged. Eli felt an urge to speak, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he simply observed her, noticing the gentle curve of her lips, the thoughtful way her eyes reflected the starlight, the quiet strength she carried without effort. Finally, she turned to him. "Eli, there is something you must know. Your presence here is no accident. Fate, time, or something beyond understanding, whatever it has brought you to me. You are here for a purpose greater than you yet realize." He swallowed hard. "I don't know if I'm worthy of that." "You are," she said firmly. "I have seen many humans. Some are bold, some cunning, some foolish. But you carry something different. The spirit of one who would act not for power but for life. That is why I smiled at you. That is why I sought your guidance again and again." Eli felt a swell of emotion he could not name. His life, which had always been ordinary and predictable, had become entwined with someone extraordinary. The Queen had chosen to see him, to trust him, to stand with him. Before he could reply, a messenger arrived, bowing low. "Your Majesty, sensors detect an unknown vessel approaching from the outer rim. It carries no identification." The Queen moved to the observation window, her eyes narrowing. "Prepare a signal. Attempt communication. If it responds peacefully, we will not engage. If not..." Her voice trailed, but the threat was clear. Eli joined her at the console, analyzing the vessel's trajectory. "It's moving fast, but it doesn't match any known human or alien fleet signatures," he said. "Could be pirates or rogue elements. Could be testing us too," the Queen nodded. "Then we must act with care. Eli, I need you to manage this. Guide our sensors and send the first signal." He took a deep breath, steadying his nerves. Using all he had learned, he activated the communication system, sending a precise neutral message to the unknown vessel. "We are the Ardent Dominion. Identify yourself and state your intent." Moments passed and the display flickered with a response. A voice spoke in fractured English. "We seek help stranded. Need guidance." Eli frowned. "They are human," he said quietly, "but from a faction we don't recognize." The Queen placed a hand on his arm. "Then we will help them. That is the right course. Even strangers deserve guidance." Together they guided the vessel safely through the perimeter, providing instructions to avoid detection by hostile forces. Eli felt a sense of pride and awe as the unknown crew followed their directions, their lives in their hands now protected. When the ship docked safely, Eli exhaled. The Queen's gaze met his again, soft and approving. "Once more you have made the difference." He shook his head, smiling faintly. "I only followed your guidance." "No," she said, a hint of warmth in her voice. "You acted with your own courage. That is why I trust you." The moment passed, and for a few hours the palace quieted. Eli walked through the halls beside her, the weight of responsibility still heavy but tempered by relief. They spoke little, yet the silence was comfortable, filled with mutual understanding. Later on the observation deck, the Queen turned to him. "Eli, there is more to this than just guiding fleets. You must understand the trust I place in you. I have lived for centuries, ruled empires, seen countless lives rise and fall, yet I have never trusted anyone like this. Not a general, not an advisor, not even my closest counselors. You are different." He looked at her, humbled. I don't know what to say." "Then say nothing," she said, smiling faintly. "Just remember this, your choices, your courage, and your heart matter. They will shape the future in ways neither of us can yet see." Eli nodded, understanding. He did not need more words. The Queen's trust, her recognition, her subtle approval, all spoke volumes. As night fell completely, the stars above the capital shimmered like diamonds. Eli stood beside her, feeling the weight of the galaxy in its vastness, yet comforted by the quiet strength of the Queen beside him. Together they had prevented conflict, guided fleets, and shown that understanding could triumph over fear. And in that moment, he realized something profound. He was no longer just a human engineer from a distant colony. He was part of something larger, something beyond his comprehension, yet undeniably real. He had been chosen not for power nor for skill alone, but for courage, wisdom, and heart. The Queen smiled at him one last time that evening, the same smile that had first stopped him in the Grand Hall. It carried centuries of history, hope, and recognition, and Eli knew without doubt that their bond, born of trust, courage, and understanding, would endure, shaping the course of events yet to come. In the quiet of the night, beneath the twin suns now hidden beyond the horizon, a human and a queen stood side by side, looking toward a future filled with uncertainty and possibility, knowing they had already made a difference, and that difference would echo through the stars for generations to come.